congrats on your BMI Icon Award. That was a big deal.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. That was crazy. Yeah, I am. I'm still sort of trying to process, all that meant, and
Sure.
35 years of a journey that is, beyond anything that I ever could have imagined as a
Yeah.
kid from Paducah, Kentucky, which I still feel kind of like that is what I am and who I am. And so, yeah, it was an amazing night, and the fact that I got to have so many of the people who've been a part of that journey with me for all those 35 years come and celebrate it with me. That was what really made it special and overwhelming. I mean, I stood in the room as people walked in the door for a little reception before the award was presented, and it was this night of amazing celebration, but I just kept bursting into tears. I mean, somebody would walk through the door and it was somebody I hadn't seen in 10, 15 years who was in the trenches, with me at so many points in my journey. And I would just have all these memories just from seeing their face across the room. And I'd just start getting tears in my eyes and then go over and give them a hug, and couldn't even hardly say much other than just, it's so good to see you and thank you. But it
Yeah.
was just like a flood of memories of just God's goodness and faithfulness, at all these little points in my journey. It was really amazing.
Yeah, that snapshot testimony, one of the things that I love to do is I love to kind of bring out those moments in our lives. Some of them are feel big and monumental, and some of them feel really small, but the key is that they're personal and they're moments where we are keenly aware that God sees us, that we are being
Yeah.
seen, that we're known, that we're loved. When's the last time would you say that you experienced one of those moments where you're like, "Wow, God, this is you, and I know it and I feel it."
Yeah. Well, I first of all, when you talk about those moments that seem mundane, my mind immediately goes to the fact that that really is what I have done for 35 years in writing my songs. It's
Mhm.
taking those moments in my journey in my life and setting them to music, recognizing, God, you know, call them God moments, whatever
Yep.
those moments that, and sometimes I don't even see it maybe at the moment, but after I get past it, I think that was amazing. That was profound. God was saying something to
Mhm.
me, and I know me. I can't remember anything where my keys are, where my phone is. If I don't write a song or put some sort of a form, so songs are kind of my journal entries, and I can
Okay.
sing them back to myself, and I can listen to them again, and I get to share them with other people and say, hey, maybe this is a moment for you, that you need to be reminded too. And God showed up in
Mhm.
this moment for me, and I could go through the songs. I could go through songs like Cinderella, written after one night with my little girls just missing a moment, feeling convicted that they wanted to dance with me. They wanted just to have a moment to make a memory, and it was late and I was tired, and I said, just get in your pajamas and go to bed. We'll do that tomorrow. And and the conviction of that moment that I missed, turned into a song called Cinderella. That night I sat and wrote that song with tears in my
Oh, wow.
eyes and a
Yeah.
big old weight on my chest, and of a moment missed that I felt like God was saying, hey, don't miss it. You're going to miss these
Mm.
moments if you don't stop and pay attention. And so my life and my music catalog is full of those. But when you say give me a most recent one, the first thing that came to mind, actually yesterday I was sitting at breakfast with some guys that are in the Christian radio world
Mhm.
that I'm setting with to talk about new music. Uh, I've just finished recording and putting together a new album of music
Wow.
that I'm very excited about. 35 years after the release of my first record, came out in 1987. Turns out I still have things to say and things that I feel like I'm compelled to share with anyone who will listen. Conversations I still feel like I want to have, little moments like we were talking about that God keeps showing up and they turn
Mhm.
into a song. And so I was sitting with some guys just talking about that process and that journey, and thinking through the journey of my 35 years and the music that's come from that. And these guys unbeknownst to me, honestly, I felt like I was just kind of going into, I have some history with some of these guys. One was a new friend who's new to this radio station, but a couple of guys I have a lot of history with in terms of our just working together in Christian music and radio. And but we sat down and started just sharing our stories. And three of the four guys sitting at the table with me all began to unpack their stories of adoption miracles that had transpired in their families, and all pointing kind of back to or tethered back to, mine and Mary Beth's journey and our, public platform of sharing our story of adopting our daughter Shohana, and then Stevie Joy and Maria. And so each of these guys started saying, well, it was at your concert when you shared, your adoption journey of adopting Shoei that impacted our family. We came away from that and said, we at least need to pray about this. And each of these guys started to tell their stories, and they started to share the, the joy of it, but also the hard of it and the challenges, and yet God's faithfulness through that whole journey. And I just sat, again, with tears in my eyes. I'm guessing, I get older, I just get, more and more weepy. And so I'm just sitting there, they're bursting into tears as they're telling their stories. We're sitting at breakfast at, a busy restaurant, and I'm just sitting there crying because I'm just being reminded, in this moment, there's so much going on in the media right now in our world around all that's happened with Roe versus Wade and all the questions and all the things. And we, as our work with Show Hope, we're just this last few days really wrestling with how do we, we're going to just continue to do what we've always been doing, but do we need to make a statement? What do we need to say? What do we not need to say? We don't want to get into the fray of something that we, or it's going to just take our eye off of the focus of what we need to be about. And it's just all of those things. And in the middle of that, it was sort of like God just brought these beautiful reminders of, how he is taking these stories of brokenness and redeeming these broken stories. Every one of these guys were telling me, I mean, some of the stories were amazing, of just, this should have never been. We didn't see it coming. We didn't plan it. And now look what God's done and here's how the story is unfolding. My son, who, we adopted from Ethiopia. Well, one of the guys, we walked into the restaurant and he walked in and hugged his son. This guy is a white guy. He hugged his black son. He said, "This is my boy. This is Eli." And he's the one that we adopted because of partly yours and Mary Beth's story. And he works here, and he was the guy who seated us at our table, and he's getting his money together to go to college, and he's doing great. And he's, it was just sort of this very tangible reminder that God is telling these incredible stories, that he has a plan, that, we make our plans, but God directs our steps, often in a direction we never imagined. We didn't imagine 35 years ago when I started doing this that, I was going to sit at a table 35 years later and hear these incredible stories of rescue, redemption, of, these miracles that God let us be woven into just because we shared our story and took the steps of faith. So as we're sitting to wrap this story up, as we're sitting having these conversations, a fellow walks by and stops and says, "Steven Curtis Chapman," said, "I can't believe this. I live in Florida, but I'm moving back to New Jersey, and I just happened to be passing through Nashville. I stopped to get breakfast, and here you sit. And can I have, 2 minutes to tell you my story? I'm sitting in a concert of yours 15 years ago. My wife and I'm a pastor, all of this. We leave your concert. My daughter says, 'Mom and Dad, why are we not doing something about children that don't have families? We should do something. I think we're supposed to foster care, maybe be foster parents.'" And they were like, "Okay, where did that come from? And how do we convince her that that's not our calling?" And he said, "I don't have a lot of time, and I won't take a lot of your time, but we finally decided maybe we should consider foster parenting a little girl, maybe 6-year-old or younger little girl." So we get a call. We go through all the 40 hours of training and preparation. We get a call there's an 18-year-old young lady who has a 4-month-old, and she needs a place to go in a transition. Would you guys consider it?" And he said, "My
Wow.
immediate thought was, no, that's not at all what our plan was." And he said, now that 18-year-old lady who came to live with us for 3 years and raise her daughter is getting her master's in social work so she can now help other families in the process. And he just shared a bit of the story, and he said, "It all started there, sitting at one of your concerts, and I can't believe I'm getting to tell you that story. I always said if I ever get to meet Steven Curtis Chapman, I'm going to tell him the story." So that was just yesterday, just one of those many of just sitting there, kind of being blown away again with God saying, "I'm up to something. I'm always
Yeah.
working, always working. If you just keep showing up, we see it. We get those little glimpses. A lot of the days, like you said, we just operate in the mundane,
Mhm.
the stretches of kind of not seeing anything spectacular going on right now, but just
Right.
showing up in that step by step obedience. And then you get those little moments like I got yesterday to say, wow, God was working in all these moments in ways I never could have imagined."
Well, the cool thing is you're at this point where you're kind of at that one of those big landmark life moments. I mean, you that 35 years since your first album, and you get
Yeah,
this icon award. So it's like you're kind of standing on this point where God's allowing you to have some pretty cool reflection with the award and the
yeah,
people that you get to see, and then moments like yesterday, you're kind of
yeah.
living in that right now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You get those incredible seasons, and I think sometimes God does, we don't see it for a long time sometimes. And even now, the crazy thing is just the way life is.
Yeah.
I can have an amazing moment, mountaintop moment of receiving all this incredible honor and these accolades and people that, are standing up saying, "Man, Stephen's music is the reason I'm playing music and inspired me," and in so many ways. And then you know the way I am, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is give that 3 days, and life hits you between the
Mhm.
eyes, and
Yep.
things don't go the way you thought they were going to, and you're tired and you're sick and you're thinking, "I don't know if this even matters, and is any of this matter, and God, am I, you know where are you?" And
Mhm.
in all of this, and I feel discouraged, and I feel insecure, and so it's crazy how quickly those things can come and go. Um,
Yeah.
but taking those moments, I think sometimes that is something that God has really even taught me in this season of life. Is it's not a wrong thing to take those moments, kind of like somebody hands you a bouquet of flowers, and you need to, I think God sometimes is saying, "I want you to take a good big whiff and enjoy and appreciate this moment that you're being honored.
Mhm.
I know you're going to deflect it and give me the glory and the credit, and you're going to say it's really, I'm just still a, hillbilly from Paducah, Kentucky, and a kid who's, just God's given this, incredible opportunity to, but savor that, see, taste and see my goodness in it, and then, yeah, give me the glory and the credit, but don't miss that moment of being able to receive and appreciate the fact that I have given you this incredible opportunity to do something that you dreamed of as a kid, and more, beyond what you could ask or imagine, like Scripture says. God
Yeah.
allows us to experience that and be a part of that, which is amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the difficulties, and you think about just the last 2 years, and I know you with this latest song that you've got out still, and you're working on new music. How has these last couple years that we've experienced kind of collectively, certainly some of the hardest years that I can remember in my life, where
Hmm.
everybody around me, everybody's kind of struggling at the same time. You've got
Right.
a pandemic, and you've got a lot of social and political unrest and divide
Hmm.
in and out of the church, and it's been this whirlwind of trying to process, and how do I cling to what is
Yeah.
true. How
Yeah.
have these last couple years specifically really shaped you, and how are they coming out in the music that you're writing?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the song Still, which is the first song we've kind of released to streaming, which is this whole new world of how we do music. I'm
Yep.
still a guy who says, I just want to make a record and here's the album, here it is. It's like, well, we stream a song and we're going to release this song to streaming outlets, and then we're going to release a radio single, and then maybe we'll actually release a physical product. But do people
Maybe.
even have CD players anymore? I don't know. So it's all a new world even for me to figure out,
Uh-huh.
with releasing new music. But the first song that you referenced, Still, which is really a song written from, in fact, in the song, I say, I write lyrics like, you know, it's been beautiful, it's been terrible, it's been more wonderful and more painful than I ever would have known. Even so, still, I'm going to sing about the one who's given life to me. There's a lyric that says, I have wrestled and I've rested and I've trusted and I've tested God's patience like a foolish man. And I mean, I think in these last couple of years, that I don't think I'm alone in that. I think we have all,
Yeah.
especially as people of faith, we have wrestled uh, as we have wondered, God, what is going on personally? You know, jobs, vocations, certainly my world of, music and concerts and touring and all that completely shut down. Kind of going, okay, God, I trust you, but I don't know if are we ever going to do concerts again? And if so, what's
Mhm.
that going to look like? Because everything's changed. We're doing Zoom now. Everything's
Yep.
virtual, and and yet, you know, that's how I provide for not only my family but many families and people who depend on me and look to me and what we do together in touring and all of that. That's changing. So that's challenging many people in a lot of ways that we never imagined. I have friends who I have lost in this season of COVID. People I've worked with for years, people I've made music with, and have walked alongside for a lot of years who are with Jesus now, and we all have experienced loss um, and so you're wrestling with that. God, what do we do with this? And then I have those moments of resting and going, okay, God, I trust you. What else can I do? There's
Yeah.
a song on my new record called Where Else Could I Go? I've thought so many times of those disciples when Jesus, is looking around and starting to talk about going to a cross, and all these guys are scattering and people are going,
Yep.
okay, I thought we were, storming the city and going in victory. And now you're talking about a cross and death. And,
Yeah.
and he looks at his disciples, says, well, are you going to leave me as well? And
Man.
peel off, and they just kind of say, God, where else are we going to go? I
Where
mean,
else
you
are
have
we
the
going?
words of life. You have the only hope we have. And I felt that too. I felt those moments of God,
Mm.
where else am I going to run to? Because the world is clearly more, you know, in chaos than ever before, at least in my lifetime. So I'm going to turn to the one place that I know there is hope and peace, that can be found in you. And yet I still, I'll have moments of that, but then I'll wrestle again, and fear kind of creeps in and all the questions. And, I'm going to trust you, but then I'm going to look around, and all of a sudden I'm going to be like Peter, and the waves are coming, and I'm walking and I got this, and then all of a sudden I see the waves and I take my eyes off of Jesus and I start sinking, and and he reaches and lifts me again. And out of all of that, certainly, these new songs and this new kind of expression of what I've been experiencing, um, these songs have kind of come to be to just say, God, I through all of this, um, you are still faithful and you are still good. And I have seen that. I've experienced that. I'm still learning that. Um, and I still want to tell that message. I still want to sing that song. I don't know that the world, I've wrestled a lot with my own insecurities of, does the world really need or want, another Steven Curtis Chapman album? There's been a lot of them, and a lot of people will tell me, "Gosh, I love your Great Adventure. I love I Will Be Here. Man, there's never going to be another album like More to This Life. I mean, they go through the list, and that's so encouraging and such a gift and a blessing to hear. But often I'm like, so does that mean, you don't really care to hear anything new? Because, I've got
Yeah.
some new things I want to say. And so I've kind of wrestled with all that to say, no, I don't know. Maybe the question isn't, does the world need more music from me? I know I need to just share it, and whoever, leave that in God's hands. Whoever needs to hear it, is going to hear it and connect with it. And so I feel like, you know, all of this for me personally has really just brought me back again to that simple, foundational, yet so profound truth that God is faithful, God is good, um, God is in control. The world is out of control in
Mhm.
so many ways, like you said, politically, racially, so many things. And I address all of those things. I have songs that specifically I felt like as I was wrestling through all of that, through those specific stories of my own experience of, I want to talk about that. I want to wrestle that out through a song. But all of it kind of comes back to just land on the reality that God is on the throne, and He is good, and He is faithful. He has not left us, not forsaken us, and that's where our hope is. That's where our peace is.
Yeah. What would you say is there anything new that the Lord is showing you, as you're kinda going through the process of this album and the wrestling that you mentioned and even some of this insecurity? What's God showing you new about himself, or is it simply a reminder of the things you've been shown before and are being brought back to keeping that at the forefront?
I really think it is. It's interesting how, um, again, I'm referencing everything through a song because that's kind of how where my mind goes.
That's
Well, there's
great.
this
I love
song,
it.
there's this song that says, um, there's a wonderful thing that I read years ago, and it's kind of a seed that got planted. It took several years for me to eventually write the song, and what's really cool about it is I got to write it and actually produce it and record it with my sons, Caleb and Will Franklin, who played in my band for years. They're grown
Yes.
men now with families of their own in a band called Colony House, which is my favorite band of all times. Imagine that, that my sons are in. And but I got to work on this song with them. A song really that came from something that I read years ago from G.K. Chesterton, who talks about God being infinitely young, that we are the ones who actually grow old, and
Mm,
yet, you know, God every day, every moment, God is saying, "Hey, watch this. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again." Every sunrise, maybe that's God saying, "Hey, I am making all things new, and I'm going to do it every 24 hours,
yeah.
and paint a new sunrise, a sunset, every wave of the ocean. Maybe that's God saying, I love you. I love you. I'm not changing. I'm with you. I'm for you, because He knows we're going to need that often. We're going to forget, and He's going to keep reminding us. And so I had to write a song about it. It took me a while to eventually figure out how to do it. But for me, I think that's something that is new, and yet the message of it is that God is the same. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so the more and more that we come to know Him, the more and more that we're going to see that He is the same faithful, good Father, revealing Himself, just like your whole podcast is about, revealing Himself moment by moment in the places that we would least even expect to see Him, not necessarily in the big, moments that we would think, hey, here I am, I'm in church, I'm ready to receive it, but just the moments that He shows up when we least expect it, having
Yeah.
eyes to see and ears to hear His voice in those moments, and just to be aware. I think that's probably, I could say, maybe a new thing, but really isn't new. It's just something that I'm still learning here almost at 60 years old. And the more I see that God is continuing to do that, the more I'm amazed. That sense of wonder of just that I don't want to lose. You know, it's as we get older, it's easy to lose, especially when we go through global pandemics and crazy things that just can take a lot of the wonder out of this life and of our lives. And but I think God is just continuing to say, "Hey, I am still doing amazing, wondrous things right now at this moment. If you'll just look and see and have eyes to see it and ears to hear it."
Snapshot Testimony is a Moody Radio podcast and short feature. For more on Steven Curtis Chapman, his latest single, upcoming tour dates, his work with Show Hope, check out his website, stevencurtischapman.com. If you enjoyed today's Snapshot Testimony episode, would you be willing to take a minute to write a quick review? I'd love to hear how these stories are helping you and any suggestions you have for new episodes. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under Snapshot Testimony. I'm your host, Allie Domersant. Together, we're sharing the moments that shape our faith in Christ.